Die fast! Go back inside unless you want to fight! What? No!
Hey everyone, before I put footage of the game in this review and start talking about Plague Tale, I just wanted to give a brief note before we begin. This video took me about a month and a half to make, just to edit and shoot and write the script and do all that good stuff in between my schedule, so I hope that you enjoy. This video should be going live around the holiday season, so I hope you all have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and Happy Holidays on whatever you guys celebrate. I just wanted to give a brief note also that all of the footage I am showing is not mine. Being able to create this video, I was not able to capture a lot of footage, unfortunately, so I want to credit all of the footage that I am using to its rightful creators as the video plays, and if any creator sees their footage here, I just wanted to give a big thank you for helping making this video possible. All of the opinions and thoughts are mine. I hope everyone is safe and well. I actually believe by the time this video will go live, it's my birthday. I hit the right old age of 25, and now I feel like an old man, but you know, I'm just going through this year, and my goal is to get a new microphone for this channel. I hope you guys can just bear with me in the time being, but that is my goal for the new year, is to get a new mic so the audio can be much better. And it's been a pretty crazy year. I had some health issues that were unseen, and I've just been trying to get through them, so that's my goal for next year, to try to fix up everything and just keep going on, and of course provide more content for you guys. Just let me know if you would like to see any more reviews like this in the future for any game. I'm working on some stuff right now for you all, and I hope that you guys have a safe and happy new year, and I will talk to you guys at the end of the video. Plague Tale Requiem follows Amicia and Hugo de Rune about 6 months after the first game. You know, Hugo's macula and plague have seemed to calm down a bit, but it seems as if the plague and the rats have come back. Amicia and Hugo's new way of life is now threatened. So it's kind of hard to believe that this game was made around of a team of about 45 people, I read. And I think that's pretty astonishing, especially the fact that, you know, there are AAA games like Call of Duty that have over like 200 people, and this is a AA game that at times, like, I feel like can challenge the look of AAA games. I mean, sure, not all the time in this game, but there are lots of this game where it looks downright beautiful, and I just really wanted to start out with that compliment. So there's a lot to unpack with this game, and I kind of wanted to do sections in some ways. So I wanted to start out with the performances. Without a doubt, the performances across the board are very well done. You know, in this review, I want to exactly pinpoint why. So in most reviews, people just say, well, critics say that, oh, an actor is good or bad, and it always kind of drives me a bit crazy, because I want to know why a performance is good or bad, rather than just simply someone saying, oh, it's good, and moves on. I always like to understand why a performance is good, rather than just writing it off on a few words. So Charlotte McBurney reprises her role as Amicia from the first game. One of the fun facts of this game is that Charlotte, her first acting gig professionally, and the first time she auditioned for a role, was actually Plague Tale Innocence, and I just think that's pretty cool. You know, you always hear stories about actors who are struggling so long to get work or to make a name for themselves. You never really hear that an actor immediately auditions or gets the first script and they book the role, but not just the role, but the lead role. I just thought that was a pretty cool thing to, if you are a fan of this game, to kind of know. I just thought it was pretty neat. So what I love about Amicia via Charlotte's performance is the player really gets a sense that we're growing with Amicia in the game compared to the first. You know, there literally is an evolution with Amicia from the first game of not wanting to kill, not understanding her role as the protector and getting kind of forced in the way of life of violence, and then coming to accept her fate by the end of the first game of seeing this role and how it's kind of destined for her. This game kind of acknowledges that there seems to be a bit of fatalism within the characters, and it shows the unfairness of the sequel compared to the first game about how these characters interact with the world, the morality, and being kind of doomed for a life of pain and agony. So one of the things that actors are usually in charge to do when they get their scripts and they see their character for the first time is creating a living vessel for their character. And you know, that's not new news. As an actor, their job is to make a character come to life, but it's easier said than done.
What a mess. I can't. Oh, please. Please. How am I going to do this? Please. I can't. Help me. Lord. Stop. Stop. Stand up. Stand up and go.
When you read a script, the first thing you want to do is see where your character is before, during, and after. For Amicia, I could really see this through Charlotte's performance. Seeing what Amicia could have done before the events of the first game, seeing them during the events of the games, and then imagining what Amicia is doing afterwards. But this is specifically done through Charlotte's convincing performance as Amicia. You can really feel the conviction in her voice, as if she truly does not know anything else within this world but the protection of her brother, and seeing how that overwhelmingly takes over her life. There's a sequence when she gets her shoulder dislocated, and Charlotte has such amazing line delivery that you can really feel the sense of agony that the character is going through by having this injury and only being fueled with the desire to get back to her family. I think these situations as a performer is very difficult to do because you have to imagine what the actress is doing. She's most likely in a sound booth with her arm perfectly intact, trying to convince an audience that her body just got injured or that she is facing a physical or mental injury.
Emily wants the boy, Amicia. I'm sorry, but she is sure now
Sure about what?
that your brother is the child of Embers. She must have him, so you must die.
No, no, listen! You are all completely wrong about this! Your cult, everything!
Let's play. I'm good at this game. See.
Go to hell! You pig! You've ruined my shoulder for good. It hurts.
Another cool thing I want to talk about through Amicia is, and this is just going into the gameplay for a split second, I'll jump back into the performance, but one thing I really liked is having Amicia still be a teenager and not a trained soldier, and even if they are a trained soldier, there is still a sense of fear because we're all human beings. But one thing I really liked within the gameplay is how the gameplay humanizes Amicia, and when she gets an arrow shot at her, or a spear thrown at her, when she dodges it, the controller will start shaking, or the game's screen will start to turn red, and it's almost as if Amicia is having an anxiety or panic attack. And well, I don't blame her. I actually think that is one of the most realistic things this game can do, and I thought that was a really interesting way to convey Amicia's innocence. Another awesome thing with Amicia is also seeing the tempo changes that her character has to go through. So tempo changes, what I mean is when an actor can pretty much act a sequence or a play or a movie kind of in a straight line, but one of the things that is not always convincing about this is that that's not how humans react. All humans will react in various stages of whatever emotion they're going through in a particular time, and what I really think Charlotte does is she has such great tempo change when the script needs her to have it. She's frightened or she's angry at certain characters like Arnold.
It's going to hurt from time to time. Just breathe and relax.
Your voice doesn't help.
Stop trying to be so tough. You might learn something.
Fine. So tell me why you came back. Why you didn't just let me die. Tell me, why should I trust you? Why shouldn't I let the rats make one less problem of you?
She has a sense of despair when she realizes what she needs to do to Hugo at the end of the game and literally collapses on herself. It's really powerful stuff. As an actor that I thought playing this game, I was like, Jesus, like, this seems extremely challenging to put herself into as an actress.
But when you're gone, there'll be nothing else. I'll be alone. All alone. I can't.
She's fighting off soldiers and she's begging for more to come so she can kill them and wants to kind of stand her ground, and you can hear the rage seething through her teeth out into the world.
See? There's nothing to be scared of.
Amicia, what are you doing? We have to go.
No, I'm tired of being afraid. I'll show them that it's over. Come, I'll give you what you want.
He has a shield. Careful. Shoot the bags, Amicia. It'll blind them.
How'd you like that, huh? When someone fights back!
Or when their mother dies in the game and she is urging on Hugo to kill all the soldiers, it almost feels as if Amicia is getting lost within their rage more than Hugo, and Hugo is just more of a vessel for Amicia's anger.
Please! I'll be a better mother! I'll be a better
You need
mother!
more! You need more rats!
Please!
She's stuck! Take her down! Call more! There's your blood! Let the rats eat them!
What are you doing?
We're making you pay! Keep going, Hugo!
Kill them down, go! Whatever the cost!
Yes! Come to me! Give us your blood!
What I'm saying is, throughout the game, Charlotte really shows her range and evolution as an actress to this character. Seeing that this is her first performance professionally, and seeing it as her second time around, I'm just stunned to see how amazing of an actor she is. I really don't think there is an Amicia without Charlotte, and this is across the board for a lot of the characters. I think that the acting in this game is really excellent. So to push forward with some of the positives, one thing that I really liked about Requiem more than I expected was the cast of this game. So usually in games like The Last of Us, we have our duo, Joel and Ellie, or even in God of War, we have Kratos and their son, and other games, that kind of follow this parental figure as their relationship evolves. It is no different from Amicia and Hugo, but this game, what I was a little afraid of, but was pleasantly surprised to see, was how much I liked the new supporting cast. We are introduced into this game to Arnold and Sophia. So Arnold is an outcast knight. As we see the game progress, we kind of tend to go from distrusting him in the beginning to outright disliking him, and then to being empathetic and realizing that he actually was a pretty good person, but was faced with some pretty dire choices. To kind of go in depth with this, one thing that I really like that the game does in terms of the performances is that it lets the performance kind of act out within the gameplay and not just the cutscene. One of my favorite parts of this game was when Arnold was in his fight with the Count, it gets revealed why he has his beef with him and why he feels a sense to protect Hugo and Amicia. It's because, you can't miss this, he admits that he couldn't protect his son from the Count. You feel a sense of warmth towards Arnold that he is protecting Hugo and Amicia because he couldn't protect his son, and it really adds another layer to the character, and you realize that he was a pretty good person after all, and I just thought it came really naturally within the screen time he had.
Hey, I'm sorry for, well, everything.
Why did you take up arms with this witch, Arno? To fill the void left by your son!
Do not speak of him! His blood is on your hands!
War! You abandoned us to the enemy! But you can redeem yourself now! Give a noble command! Stop this madness! And let the boy go!
What can I do?
You can stop shouting.
Sorry, Please, don't... No.
It's the right time. And you gave me quite the last run. He's a great boy. And you...
I know.
You...
Then we move on to Sophia. So I also think Sophia really naturally fitted in with the cast. You know, throughout the game you were told that she was going to portray the characters. That was something that was hinted at time and time again, only for the game to not actually have her portray the duo. And I actually really like this because you see Sophia at times feeling as if she's going to portray you like others have, or the world just being unfair, and yet she accepts Hugo and Amicia for who they are, even with all the baggage they have in their lives. And even when she can have a cut and run situation, like seeing Hugo's rats for the first time, she stays and is there for them. And like any true friend, they stay even when they don't understand the entire situation as a whole, and they're left with more questions than answers, but their willingness and loyalness to their friends is the reason why they do what they do. And I thought one of the best scenes in the game was when the characters were rowing back to the island, Hugo breaks down a little bit and says, "Oh, you're gonna leave us," and Sophia counters back with, she likes him, so she's not going to. It felt real, and it felt natural, and it felt nice. It shows that the world, even for as bad as it can be, there is glimmers of hope, and glimmers of hope could even just be a friendship.
Hugo, look at me. Hugo, look at me.
Sophia.
Why are you crying?
Because you're going to leave. Because of me.
Calm down. Now you listen to me. I've never seen anything like you two. And for some stupid reason, I like you. And I like you at the shittiest, worst of your life, right? I'm fine with that. Even the strangest things happen for a reason. Sailors' stories are full of it. That said, you need to seriously calm down and listen to what adults tell you. Deal? And you are not a goddamn army. He looks up to you. And when your death wish becomes his, this is what happens. And this will have consequences. So... are you staying?
Don't say it out loud.
Thank you.
So as much as I love the performances and the characters in the game, I do want to talk about some of the flaws too. So the writing in the game's story feels to be a bit disjointed at times, and thus creates a disjointing experience for our characters. So throughout Requiem's story, an issue can start to show itself within the cracks of the writing. So some of the cracks is when the characters tend to repeat themselves many times of the predicament that they're in. So this happens when Hugo, a 5-year-old, questions the world around him and sees that he is only causing violence and suffering to countless civilians and cities. So as an audience member, we are supposed to be in support and in favor for our leads, thus creating a barrier of trust we feel with them and the outside world. The problem is, Amicia and the cast tend to repeat, quote, "It's not your fault," to Hugo, and the times almost to the point of deafening. I mean, sure, don't get me wrong, I understand that the story is trying to make sense or show a sense of a child's perspective, that there is a grasp or not an understanding of the moral righteousness as an adult can grasp due to our brains being able to process and develop these experiences through our lives, through our different experiences, and also just being older. It's hard to tell a 5-year-old or a child the idea of a moral dilemma. However, I do think that the writing and the story itself can benefit to this if done correctly. So what I mean is, say there is a situation when Amicia is getting beat up in this game, and maybe there's a straw that kind of breaks the camel's back of her getting hurt, and instead of having Hugo's back, she snaps in a moment of rage, says that the world is his fault. She kind of gives up a sense of hope for a minute, and then this could trigger the next sequence of the Immacula, and Hugo could unleash even more rats, feeling guilt and sorrow for the anguish he's causing in the world. Or another scenario could be having Amicia not understand how to comfort Hugo anymore, and she keeps repeating that it's not his fault, but starts to realize that it's not working, and she just doesn't really know where to go anymore and breaks down, not understanding how to comfort her brother anymore. I think small changes like these two scenarios could have really helped the game's pacing for the actors, give them more to do, rather than repeat, "Oh, it's not your fault." Because of the writing kind of repeating itself and not at times knowing where to go, as an audience member, we are now kind of granted the idea of immersion breaking, because we can think for ourselves and not through the characters, and think, wait a second, wasn't Patrice right about giving Hugo to the Order? Because whenever the duo goes to any island or any form of civilization, thousands of people and cities tend to die within days. Sometimes playing the game, I was kind of like, wait a second, who is the villain here? Us trying to act as if we can cure Hugo by letting thousands of people die and sacrificing all their lives for one person? I mean, sure, don't get me wrong, the game answers this later on within the original Immacula holder being cast away in the depths of the island and being away from his protector and giving up hope because he is being essentially concealed to the world and being held prisoner. I mean, I think this plot could have worked if it was done earlier in the game, and Hugo and Amicia could have seen the original Immacula holder if they actually went with the Order and found out that that's what they were going to do with Hugo again, because then at this point Hugo and Amicia can fight back against the Order, same with the mom, and realize that, oh, the island that Hugo wants to go to is now our best option. But what I mean by this is the ideas of the story and the writing are there and they're good, but there are ways to just make the story flow better. Don't get me wrong, like, I get it. The idea of the island is supposed to make Hugo and Amicia's relationship stronger because it shows that only they trust each other and understand each other where other people don't. But at the same time, I think logic kind of needs to be thrown in there. When you're killing thousands of people trying to get one cure for one person, I mean, I don't really think the game fully makes sense at times. I just think taking certain sequences and putting it back on the drawing board and just not even rewriting scenes, but putting scenes at different places and adding more context could have helped. I mean, just think about like what I said. If we had the original macula holder towards the beginning or middle of the game, found out that that is what is going to happen, and the characters rebel, and then they go to the island, now they listen to Hugo's dream, it gives more weight to that idea. So to continue on with the story, I do feel as if the length of the game is far too long, and a lot of the game could have been trimmed down, so the age-old sequel is bigger and better. I think that this game suffers through that dilemma. So the opening of the game does start out really strong in terms of the audience being reintroduced to these characters. It is really interesting how we see these characters be playful and be in an area where they can have fun, and then immediately we're thinking like, oh, we're just waiting for disaster, we're waiting for tragedy to strike. And then I think it's super interesting how Amicia is running through burning fields to get back to her family, and that sense of drama the opening has. I think that first hour is really well done. It's where the next couple of chapters start to kind of deflate the game. So the game kind of turns into a giant fetch quest after the prologue, and the game for some reason kind of feels the need that it needs to re-explain itself within the rats and the plague. We all know it came back due to Hugo's emotional state. Just seeing the beginning of the game, first couple hours, and seeing everything get reintroduced and resaid just feels unnecessary and feels as if these characters wouldn't have said that if it wasn't just the start of a new game. But playing the first game and then playing this game, the ending from the first game to the opening of the second game, when they're in the new town and they're re-explaining what's going on, I would feel a bit jarred, being like, wait, why are we re-saying this? And then Amicia and Lucas are tasked with getting herbs, and then they need to go back out, do something else. Oh, but then they go and fight the soldiers, and then that becomes a subplot. That kind of subplot deflates when those soldiers die, and what I'm saying is, the game's story doesn't really feel like it starts until after they leave their new home, which is a couple hours in, and for the first couple hours, yes, it is world building, but it's building in the regard of kind of just fluff for fluff's sake. And then to kind of move on with one more negative of the story, I don't really think the cult fully works. Sure, I do think it once again, it is a interesting take on the dream of Hugo with the island that can cure him being more of a nightmare than it is a fantasy when it is introduced. I just think it is kind of executed a bit poorly. However, I wouldn't fully scrap this idea. I do believe if brought back to the drawing board, like I said, with this sequence and other sequences, it could have been made a lot better. So for one instance, in my opinion, I thought to myself, maybe the Child of Embers is Hugo, like this game says, and maybe the citizens of the island try to worship Hugo too much, and it gives him so much panic that he ends up having a panic attack and causes rats to come, and then the citizens maybe feel as if they need to do a blood sacrifice to Hugo to end the plague, and then it's kind of like a race of time for our characters to get off the island. I think that could have been a pretty interesting scenario. And to kind of continue on with the blood sacrifice, in terms of going back to what the story is, I do think the slaver subplot of the game is a bit kind of outlandish. Like, it kind of just happens, just kind of odd, if that makes sense. And then after the slavers of seeing how cynical the world is, we're treated that the Count made up the Child of Embers and made up this kind of fantasy world for his wife because she had an abusive childhood. That to me seemed very off. It is kind of introduced in a throwaway line that it's mentioned and then there's nothing more to it. There's no flashbacks of the Count's wife. There's no full detail of what happened for her character. He just kind of mentions, oh yeah, there was abuse, and that was it. And then it jumps to the Count now wanting to kind of create an army so he can take over the world because the game needs a villain.
Such a fragile little thing.
All right, you've won. Don't hurt him.
Hurt him? He's Emily's son. My son. He's a god.
He's our doom, Victor.
You need to let him go. To his sister.
No. I owe this to Emily. With her, I tried so hard to believe this world wasn't just blood and war. That I could throw a blanket over these flames. But the truth is, people like us, we are born to feed that fire.
Whatever you're planning with him, it won't work. He will destroy you.
He'll destroy what I tell him to. We'll set this world aflame. And I'll forge an empire from that fire. A more righteous one.
It's not over, you coward! You owe me blood!
I paid that price already. Now my son needs to rest. Finish this!
Like I said, I think the cult, the slavers, and the idea of therapy for the wife could all work. It just feels like ideas were thrown in this game and not given enough context. When the portrayal comes from the account, I was more or less like, wait, what? Like, why is this happening? Oh, because the game says one line and that justifies it. It feels a little lazy, and it feels a little incomplete, at least this section of the game. I do think that the safe haven being dark and having the cracks of more sinister than it is a good idea, and the child of embers is a good idea. It just needs a course correction. But one thing I do want to praise the story is the ending of the game. I do think that the ending is very strong, especially when Amicia is tasked with basically euthanizing her brother. I really felt the emotional gut punch of Charlotte's performance as she kind of falls to her knees and just admits that she can't do it. I mean, let alone, I can't imagine even acting that scene. I feel like that would be torture, but also kind of cathartic in some ways. I don't know, you never really know how you feel until you're in the moment, but it was one of those sequences where I'm like, yeah, she deserved all the money for that day. It felt real, and it felt poignant, and it felt natural.
I can't!
Seeing this character you tend to grow and care with, I think, is earned, or at least his fate is earned, rather than feeling rushed. So the story, I think, kind of jumped all over the place with some quality, but now I do want to transfer it to gameplay. Gameplay is basically like the first game, so Amicia has her rock and sling, but this time more gadgets. You know, her sling can put out torches with extinguishers, or tar to make fire brighter. You know, rats can chew up human beings when they're controlled by Hugo. And there's even a sequence when you can see enemies through the walls, kind of like The Last of Us hearing vision. You know, jars can burn soldiers to death if thrown correctly. And basically there are more tools for the trade this time around in the first game. However, I never really found myself alternating between each type of sling ability to go with the flow of the level design, but basically just used my crossbow as the GTA cheat code of this game. And my god, is this thing a monster. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I wish I saved up every single penny to unlock the pick up the arrows from the dead bodies perk. This basically breaks the game. You shoot an enemy and it's an instant kill, and you can go and pick up your bolt. I mean, you basically have infinite ammo, and Amicia goes from having people be the predator to her being the predator and hunting the entire game. I mean, the game legitimately takes a 180 of you getting beat up and needing to hide versus you just being more powerful than everyone. It is cathartic, but I do think it is a bit OP, and I do think that it makes the variation of gameplay of what this game wants to kind of be non-existent. Why should I throw an extinguisher and fire and then control rats to eat that one person when I can literally just shoot arrows at everyone or take my sling and shoot a headshot on an enemy without armor and then basically just clear everyone and make my time more efficient? I mean, the crossbow is basically an instant kill, and when you can get all the ammo you need in the game by just picking it up, why wouldn't you do that? kind of breaks the game in some ways. I mean, it was fun, and the dynamic was interesting of change, but it takes the creativity out of the game, and it takes the stealth out of the game, because you don't really need to do anything else. One thing I do when I mention what the stealth is, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't really a big fan of the stealth in this game. I think in games like The Last of Us, it feels optimized better, it feels more smooth, it feels as if I can kind of get around enemies more cleanly. But in Plague Tale, whenever I tried to do sneaking, it felt as if the enemies always kind of knew where I was, or the game wasn't registering properly. Like there were a rock at a piece of metal to distract them, they wouldn't always turn, or they would turn, I'd move and they'd find me, and it felt like the optimization of the game was lacking. So what I basically did was, I just said screw it after being annoyed and just ran through the levels. I'm not kidding, that was the best thing I could do, because me running broke the game. Like the game wasn't prepared for me to do that, and the enemies couldn't react to me fast enough. So if I was in point A on a door, and point B was the get out of jail door, like across the map, I would just sprint, because I was so annoyed with the mechanics that by the time the enemies caught wind with me, I was already on the next part of the game. So there is a pretty interesting dynamic when it comes to the skill tree of the game. So the skill tree focuses more on aggression, alchemy, and stealth. The game is more built of a natural playthrough. How do you play your game? And the game will adjust accordingly in real time. So if you are more stealthy, you will gain more abilities for stealth, like quicker movements, or being more nimble on the fly. Or if you're aggressive and you take out your enemies, Misa can reload faster, or she might stun enemies longer. I actually really like that in this game, and thought that the immersion was there and not being broken when in other games you have to pause and choose what you want. I think in this type of game, being so story-driven and narrative-driven, it would have taken the immersion out. But having the game adjust to you real time, in my opinion, I thought was really cool. And by the time I got my crossbow, I mean, everything was like level 1, and my aggression was like level 1 billion, because I was just shooting every single person possible. So yeah, the skill tree or skill progression kind of becomes useless when you get the crossbow, but still, I do think it was a valiant effort to try. Hey everyone, Brendan here. I just wanted to give a big thank you if you were able to watch the video to its entirety. I put in a lot of effort to make this video happen, and a like, subscribe, and comment would be very much appreciated. I hope that in the near future I can make some great content for you all, and also fix up my setup so I can make better quality videos. But please let me know if you enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you all soon. Thank you guys, and stay safe.